I'm Book Talk with Kay. Next to me is my co-host Indiana Joe and Miss Laya. Our special author guest tonight is Mr. Pierre. How are you?
I'm on caffeine, but I'm going to be okay. And
That's
I've been
good.
busy writing, and I've been busy working on projects and stuff like that, and a ton of other projects. Excited for my latest release coming out on Halloween. So it's been fun. I've got a few ARC readers already, including my wife, who instantly, like in the middle, like in the first two pages, is like, okay, I'm hooked. Just reading it, it was pretty quick. It was a pretty fast move for a book. Makes me happy. Really, really does make me happy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, we are going to announce a Halloween event that we're having. Pierre, you're more than welcome to come. If you have a costume, you could get up in a box and tell us all about your newest book, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, that's fun. That's pretty awesome. That sounds like a blast. I have a couple of ideas for a costume. Like, I definitely would not mind that. That's kind of wild. Because I'm a fan of Star Wars, I could dress up like, a Jedi.
That would work.
I even have a lightsaber. I have a real lightsaber.
That's
Like,
pretty awesome.
well, you can't really see it. It's like back there. But it's a manufactured, mechanized lightsaber, and I can turn it on, and it makes sounds, and it goes whiz, 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 whiz. It does all that cool stuff. Yeah, I'm a big kid. You can just ask the wife.
So, Pierre, tell us all about your books.
Oh my god. Okay. All right. I'll just start from the very beginning. So I'm just gonna like talk endlessly. Okay. You
We
can
love
see the
that.
cane letters. You can see the cane letters right there. With Life with Laya. Absolutely, she just adores the books. I mean, she's crazy about them, right? I hope so. The cane letters was originally published in 2009. I got the attention of an editor-in-chief for a mid-sized publishing house on the East Coast. And it was a dream come true. I was initially a trad. I was traditionally published. They were not big New York or anything like that. They didn't offer me an advance. They just saw that my work had promise, and she wanted to personally take me on as she was going to be my editor, but she was also the owner of the publishing house. And her name was Lee. Then I published book 2 with Airlander Publishing. It's the name of the house. Come to find out, I think about 3 or 4 years in, she called me. I was in the process of about being interviewed online, like 10 minutes after the fact. She calls me to tell me some news, and I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what was going to happen. I thought, is this something big? Like, am I going on a book tour or whatever? No, she told me she had cancer. And
Oh, wow.
about 10 minutes before I had to go and get interviewed, and I about lost my shit. I was like,
Yeah.
and she said she was stepping down, from running the publishing house. And I lost it because I had already developed this relationship. I know a lot of authors identify with this, where we have the author and the editor, and there's very much a tug and pull, and it's a dance, and you get really, really close with your editor because the editor knows probably the author the best, especially when it's trad. And so to hear that she was pulling back or stepping out, my heart sank, and it was rough. But I told her that I got an interview coming up, and now you're telling me this. And she said, I know. And she said, you got this. You can do this. You are going to be fine. And I remember it to this day. And it sucked, but it felt good at the same time. It was really weird. So I had to get myself together, and I kind of hyped myself up, and I did the interview, knowing that this woman who was my editor, who I never met in person. She just took my work and she corresponded with me back and forth. Never flew over to the East Coast, to see her, in the office. I never even met her cover artist. or any of the other editors or any of the other authors that were under the publishing house. Never met a single one of them. But then I heard that the house folded and my rights were reverted back to me. And I never heard from her ever again. So I think she's probably 6 feet under. Just disappeared quietly. And to this day, I don't know where she is, or, I look up her name and I can't find any information, and to this day, like since 2009, not a word. When the rights were reverted back to me, that meant my listings completely fell off. Like, they were gone. You couldn't find them anywhere. You couldn't find them on Amazon. You couldn't find them in Barnes & Noble. You couldn't find them anywhere. And so I thought, I'm back to square one. What do I do? Do I, try to find another agent? Do I try to find, another publishing house? What have you? And I remember what you told me. It's like, you got this. You can do this. I'm not going to start over. Like, it's just not going to be the same. It is not going to be the same. Trying to find another editor to develop that relationship, or find an agent or whatever. And I said, screw it. I'm going to do this on my own. And I learned everything about publishing that I possibly could: cover design, editing, book building, actually building the manuscript to make it look like it's part of a book, margins, and you name it, everything. I learned it all. It is hard. It is a hard full-time job doing that. And I republished the Cane Letters officially under my name. That cover you see there is all me. I did that all by myself. Used a lot of the design materials that are available on Canva. Did a lot of the research, to find royalty-free images that worked, and tried to be as very original as possible, because I didn't want to use images that, everyone would be like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. I wanted to be very, very original, and I didn't have the funds to hire a cover artist, so I did it myself. Republished in 2015. Chimera Falls was republished in 2016. And then I officially published Malamunis, which is book 3, in 2020. And that wasn't a republish, or a rework or whatever. That was like, this is a brand new manuscript. I did it all. I edited it myself, the whole 9 yards. And I took everything that I learned from Lee, my editor, on what to look for, what to cut, what to tighten up, all that kind of stuff, to try to really make it my own without losing my voice. And book 3 came out. And to this day, when my wife read it in like 2019, before I had to go live, she finished it on her tablet. Then she took one look at me and said, "Why did you do that? Write book 4 now. I am not going to leave you alone until you write book 4. Like, I did my job. I did my job. It was compelling enough, and it definitely carried the torch, from the first 2 books successfully, while adding a whole bit of just trauma into it. And so now book 4, it's taken me 6 years now, because salaries, full-time jobs, kids, life, sometimes it does get in the way. Layoffs happen. I'm contracting now. My time is way more flexible. I started getting on TikTok a little bit more. Started networking with other authors, learned a little bit more how to use the platform. And wouldn't you know it, I've sold more than 40 copies on TikTok alone now, and not spent a dime on marketing. And I'm still not entirely sure how I managed to do it, but it's happening. So if you enjoy things like Blade, Underworld, Tomb Raider, The Da Vinci Code, The Exorcist, Aliens, Bram Stoker's Dracula, anything written by Anne Rice, Lestat, Louis, Armand, all of those, classic vampire novels, all of those classic tropes, but also mixed in with a lot of what we see in urban fantasy. So we got the more modern day vampires mixed in with the old and the classic, and also the very bestial, the ones that terrify you the most, like from Salem's Lot, from Stephen King. That encompasses my entire Divine Covenant series, from start to finish. The Cane Letters is more a cat and mouse chase, fast-paced thriller, grabs you by your collar, and drags you on this drag race of like who's going to get to it first, who's going to get to it first, who's going to die, or who's going to be unalived. I'm sorry. Until you get to the end and you feel like you got there safely, but things are not always safe. That's where book 2 comes in, and book 2 just disturbs people to death. I don't know where I was when I wrote book 2, but it was very disturbing. It's definitely a slower burn, definitely a slower book, but it is intense and will get you really, really angry in some parts because bad things happen. But you're in for it and you love it, and you're then ready for book 3, which book 3 amps up both book 1 and 2 by about 10 notches, and then by that time you just don't like me. The goal is book 4 is going to get you to like me again. That's pretty much it. Book 4 is attempting to like me again, because I'm going to tie things up, as best I could while, jerking tears out of your eyeballs as much as I can. There's going to be a little bit more trauma. It's kind of like the equivalent of Avengers Endgame, kind of like the equivalent of Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows. So the ending is very powerful. It's going to be the biggest book of the series, roughly about 500 pages long. Malin Munis almost clocked in at about 400 pages. So this is the end of a huge saga that started way back in like 2008. It's now 2025, and that series is going to be done. But my writing's not done yet. I have more. My latest novel is Sealed by Stone, and this one was a bit of a surprise. It came out of nowhere. I'm sure a lot of authors, kind of understand this and, identify with this a lot, that all of a sudden, like, a character pops in your head, or an idea pops in your head. And it won't go away. Like, it just will not go away. It almost compels you to go to your computer or your laptop and just start typing, start sketching characters, start plotting out, some sort of story, because you want to see something resolved, like, this character is like, help me live out my life or something, and I pictured, this nun who just, is obsessed with demons and then finds out that these demons are also obsessed with her. That is Sealed by Stone. It is the scariest piece of literature I've written so far.
Sounds like it, yeah.
It is also a spin-off of the Divine Covenant series, and that was sort of by accident, a happy accident. But it spins off, particularly in book 2, Chimera Falls, really spins off of it. And but there are no vampires, there's no urban fantasy. It's mainly a psychological horror novel about demon possession, and it's a mind F. That's like the best way I can describe Sealed by Stone. And so far, I haven't gotten any feedback yet, but the wife is loving it, and there's a couple of others that are like, oh my god, like, what did I get into? Like, this is wild. And I mean, it is a little spooky, at least that's what I gather. I could even read a review if you'd like as well, but like I said, it has not debuted yet. It's going to debut on Halloween.
Hi, Pierre. I hate to be rude and interrupt, but is there a way we can turn down the TV in the background? It's getting harder to hear you every now and then.
Is it? Hold on a second.
Daddy, can I have a popsicle?
Thank you guys for all the gifts. Bama, you were smashing it. You went up a level.
Go Bama. Go Bama.
All right, that's my 4-year-old's Tabby that you were hearing, I think.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry I had to interrupt.
It's okay.
Sorry. So, how did you come up with the titles of your books?
Wow, that's a really good question. Well, when I thought of the Cain letters at first, it came about, just from watching this documentary on Vlad Tepes the Impaler. I mean, the man who was modeled after Dracula by Bram Stoker. He was the impaler, and he was considered the dragon, which the name Dracula comes from, and seeing that documentary was really really interesting, and there were a lot of emphasis on like letters and documents and things like that. So the brain started kind of working a little bit, fleshing out like this really really cool story that also pulled from things like Indiana Jones, because I love Indiana Jones and I love artifacts and I love Tomb Raider. Yes, Indiana Joe. Um, and all of a sudden, like I started daydreaming. I started daydreaming about stories, that involved, denizens of hell and being chased and looking for these artifacts and things like that. Like the killage that Vlad Tepes would wield as this ancient sword, and it was so cool thinking about like artifacts like that I started doing research in the Old Testament and in the New Testament of the Christian Bible. I then read a few chapters of Elizabeth Kostova's The Historian, and that almost sealed the deal. I'm like, this is the coolest thing. Like, who knew someone could take the whole mythology, the mythos of Dracula, almost turn it on its head and make it something about history, which is so cool. I never got to finish her book. I was just in a different place. I think it was because like I was starting to write something, so I could never finish her book. But like it struck a chord in me, reading about something that involved a book, an artifact, an ancient book or a manuscript that detailed the origin of vampirism, because then I started watching a film called Dracula 2000 with Gerard Butler, who played the titular character himself, Vlad Dracula. And I loved it. It was a little campy, but I love that sort of stuff anyway, And then when I saw the end and the twist, I was enthralled. I was like, that's kind of cool. I'm not going to say what the twist was, but I can only imagine a lot of you may have remembered what it was with Dracula 2000, but it did involve tie-ins with Christian mythology and Christian history and the New Testament and all that. So then the brain started working. I'm like, and then it popped up, Cain and Abel, and so I did more research, in the Old Testament. And as I was researching the Old Testament, some things really stood out to me, and knowing the fact that most of the Bible is written in letters, or some form of a letter, the name, the Cain letters, popped up in my head, and it struck me. I was like, that sounds like a book that's lost, that wants to be found, either by people who are good or denizens of evil, and it was compelling, and I ran with it. Chimera Falls was kind of the same thing. I can't exactly remember how I came up with that title, now that I remember. As I started work on book 2, like it was just almost automatic. And then book 3 was almost automatic too. I think it's because it's a series. Like it almost falls in line, and then you're like, yep, that's book 2. Yep, that's book 3. Like it makes sense. But Malamunis is a fun little story there too, because it's a combination of 2 Hebrew words. It's Malum and Unis, which is Hebrew for evil one. And so that is the name of a mysterious character in book 3, but you hear about him or her in book 1. And you also hear about him or her in book 2, but you don't know anything about him or her. All you know is the name Malamunis is apparently the writer of the Cain letters, that manuscript that is being hunted down by a couple of vampire lords, one from Russia and one from Los Angeles, California. So 2 opposite spectrums. You got one that's more like classic Anne Rice, and you got the other one that's more like Damon Salvatore from the Vampire Diaries. See how those 2 fit together? That's pretty wild. But they're chasing after this manuscript because they want like the secrets to vampirism, and they want to know how to become masters of the nation, and then treat mankind like they're the ultimate food source. On the other hand, we got Alexander Glade, who is a vampire hunter, ancient line from dating way back in the book of Genesis, and the Vatican enlists her and her team to also try to uncover the book, wherever it is. We don't know where it is. Like, so they're just looking for clues, and they're trying to dig up, all sorts of research on where this book possibly can be. And there's been, crusades of this book, in the past, but nothing would come of it. So this is another attempt, and now the Vatican is getting involved. And this is an interesting play for Alexandra Glade, Vampire Hunter, because she's more used to just taking out her pistols, and emptying chambers into any evil thing that she possibly could, want to empty into. But now she's just being enlisted to find a manuscript. Fun. But it turns out to be very, very interesting for her. And she's left in some moral quandaries as a result. Sealed by Stone came by... That was almost random too. But I was thinking of something that, made so much sense, and this contributed to coming up with the name of the character too. But I was thinking of something that is sealed completely to, and almost like the Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe, like just completely covered up in rock, like a grave or like a crypt or a tomb, and it's completely sealed, and no one can get out and no one can go in. And it was a bit disturbing, and it was a bit compelling in a scary way to think like, oh my God, you are sealed shut and you can't get out, or no one can come in. And it left an image in my head, and I thought, stone, sealed by stone. That's really, really compelling. I can build a story out of this. And that's where Sealed by Stone came from.
You have a really beautiful writing style that you don't see a lot of nowadays. It's almost poetic. What inspires you to write in that sort of way? But it's so good, like you're right there in the moment too. It's not like dated or anything.
What inspired me to write in that way? Well, okay, this one definitely I can answer. Fun fact, before I really ever was a novelist, I was a poet. And I still am a poet. I've written at least 100 poems, and some of them were written in chapbooks and published. I also performed poetry. I studied poetry ever since I was in grade school, and I studied poetry in high school as well as in college. And I wrote all sorts of poetry. I wrote sestina sonnets, free verse, Alexandrian lines, and I learned how to basically just raft a poem out of thin air. Like I could write a sonnet in about 10 seconds or 10 minutes. 10 minutes, I can just write a sonnet on just like any subject, and have it match the iambic pentameter, like everything's rhythmic and the rhyme. I don't know. It just comes out of nowhere. Like it's just something in me that, the poet comes out, and the writing of the books came later, but that's where that comes from. So if you read my work, like you can see, if you read in between the lines, you can tell that there's a lot of that poeticness in there, but I studied Edgar Allan Poe, and that helped. Because Edgar Allan Poe is a short story writer as well as a poet, and everyone knows The Raven, and reading his work and reading Robert Frost, and and merge the two together. And so I have this narrative that is very, very much poetic. Yes? Very, very soon. Okay.
You do an amazing job at it. It's very beautiful, but it's still very spooky too. But Edgar Allan was spooky too, so.
It was very spooky, yeah.
So you did a lot of research for these books and the titles. How extensive was that?
The Cain letters, I did a whole lot of extensive research for that. I think I researched for about a week. And not just in the Old Testament, but I also researched just other books in general, um, just studying Christian mythology to get a little bit more of an idea, because it's interesting, to say, there's some, things that are left out in the Old Testament, for whatever reason, we don't know, and really it doesn't even matter. Like for instance, like, when Cain died, we don't see that in the Old Testament. We get to see, all these other characters, in the Old Testament, when they died, how long they lived. We get to see that. We it's written on there. It's like a genealogy. We don't see how long Cain lived, at all. Like, we don't even know what happened to him. It's not even written in there. Now should be just chalked up to the fact that Cain is the world's first murderer, and we're not going to write about him at all. No scribe is going to, consider, well, what happened to Cain? Because he was basically marked, and that was it. Like, there's nothing there, So I'm researching, all sorts of mythology and all sorts of theories, tied into things like the demon Lilith, as a succubus or an incubus. I can't remember which is which. And then it hit me like, oh, that's kind of cool. There's a mythology there that I can work with. And I'm afraid to say more because it will kind of like open up the door to, all that, what the Divine Covenant is. But that kind of simmers in your brain a little bit. Doing a lot of research that's extra biblical as well as biblical, tying it in all together, making it marry quite well. It was fun, and it helped reading things like Dan Brown, the Da Vinci Code. A lot of his work, inspired me a little bit too, because then I get to like look at a lot of, these interpretations, and then go, hey, that's interesting. I can make that work in a story. And I can tell a story that's about faith. I can tell a story that's about good and evil. And that resonates with me. And I love it, and that's why I write it, and I want people to love it as well.
Was there anything in your research that really surprised you?
Ooh. Not really. No, there wasn't anything in particular that surprised me. And yeah, Lilith was Adam's first wife. Yep, I read that, and that's kind of what clued me in a little bit too, is because Lilith was banished from the Garden of Eden, because of, how she treated Adam. And then Eve was created, Now, that's not confirmed in the Old Testament. I mean, that is mythology. It could be real, it could be not, who knows? But just thinking that possibility is absolutely real is just exciting, But no, nothing really surprised me in the research, I don't think. Like, all of it was just like, not surprising, but illuminating. I felt like I was Indiana Jones' father, and I was illuminated by the fact that I found the Holy Grail.
What was your biggest challenge when writing the book or the series?
Oh boy. Okay. Well, the Cain letters took me about 4 months to write. I wrote that entire manuscript on my breaks when I was working as a caption editor back in 2008. I would take my 15-minute breaks, and I would just blaze on the keyboard in those 15 minutes, just writing this novel. And it took me about 4 months.
I asked my mom if I can have one, and she said yes.
Okay. And Chimera Falls took me about 6 months to write. That one was...
Does it get easier as you go on? Does it get easier?
Yes and no. Yes and no. Yes, because I know where it's going. No, because it's harder to get there. Because the stakes are higher. And sometimes that plays into, where you are in life as well. Where you are in life as you're writing a book plays into the journey that you take in writing that book. And
that makes sense.
And sometimes, you get stuck. In that journey. Then you have to think about how to get out of that, hole you're in, or the crossroads that you're in, and you go, oh my God, what do I do? Like, where do I go? And then you're forced to really, really think critically about, where you need to go. But you know where you're going to end up a lot easier as you get further into a series. That I can agree with. It did take me longer for book 2, and it did take me longer for book 3. A lot of that played into the fact that, my editor-in-chief, got cancer and stuff like that. So it was a little bit traumatic, and then really getting myself out of that headspace of like, oh, geez, now I'm by myself again, and what do I do? And I had to get myself out of that headspace and go, this is mine. Book 3 is mine. I can do this. This is mine. I'm going to do this. And a lot of it is very psychological. But it took me a while to get past those humps and to get past those, breaking points. And then by the time I got past those breaking points, I was zooming. I was zooming through the manuscript, shutting off my internal critic, because you got to write with your heart, and then you edit with your head. Holy mother, you got 80,000 hearts? You guys are popular.
It's all for you. You're our guest, so.
Well, thank you.
Is there a moment from your personal life that shows up in any of your books? Or inspired a character?
Yeah, a little bit. They're kind of metaphors, though, honestly. I think this is very... we don't think about it. Like, I bet, there are a lot of authors, trad or indie, that, they don't think about, how something influences their work, and until maybe in hindsight they look back and they go, yeah, I pulled that from my experience, my real world experience. That's very sure. Alexandra Glade, honestly, personally, I was drawn to her due to a lot of my loves for, the female heroine, the badass, she always reminded me of Ellen Ripley, Celine, Sarah Connor from the Terminator series. These are some of my most favorite films, watching as a kid, was watching these ladies, kick ass, and somehow looking very, attractive while doing it without being very modernly attractive. For once, muscle and, clothing and just a raggedy ponytail can actually be attractive. And maybe that's just me. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. But seeing a woman really, really, take names was kind of attractive, because she didn't take any crap. And that's what Alexandra Glade was. But then she kind of evolved a little bit more. She evolved to be a little bit more like my wife, who, a soft heart, patient, and you see this evolution through the books. In the first book, she's just like, I don't care, I want to unalive everything. And in book 2, she's kind of traversed into, well, I will, unalive everything, but I'm going to save these people over here, and I'm going to save these people over here, and I need to save this person, and if this person goes away, I'm going to be torn, and I'm going to be destroyed. And you see that, and you experience that, and you feel for her, and your heart hurts for her. But then she rises up. She completely rises up, and she changes, dramatically. By book 3, she's practically a hero. She's practically a hero. She'll still, if, some vampires come at her, she's gonna unalive them really, really quickly, really violently. But most of the time it's to, save her loved ones. And she realizes it. She sees that. Now, my wife is very much like that. So a lot of that experience is, evolved with her, because I wrote book 2. When did I write book 2? Yeah, I wrote book 2 when I knew her, when I was married to her. Oh my gosh, wow. And then I wrote book 3 while I was married to her. So like, a lot of that, is very much an experience that is, driven by her and the feeling of loss. I've lost people in my life, and you see that loss in books 1 and 2 and 3, and you're going to see it in book 4. So be prepared. So I've had a lot of mental, emotional trauma, but like I've had, like Christ on my side to like battle all of those demons. And this has been therapy for me too, is like writing these books. I'm sure every author identifies with that too. Like writing is therapy. We write to deal with our demons, and then we get to tell that to our reader, and they get to deal with their demons too.
So, as a writer, you have to build these worlds. You recently moved. Do you think that inspires new settings in your writing as well, or how do you go about your world building?
That's an interesting question. Well, I had the benefit of visiting a lot of different places as I grew up. I was a student ambassador for the United States to Australia. I got to see Australia. I got to see LA. So a lot of that memory was there in me. Moving in particular here, I mean, it was tumultuous, and honestly, I think it did play a role in writing Sealed by Stone, because Sealed by Stone was just utter nightmare. It's just terrifying. And maybe that kind of played a role in this whole move, So like definitely personal experiences definitely do play a role in the development of the book, not just the character. We were talking about the characters, but now we're talking about like books and the setting and all that stuff. Definitely played a role. But Egypt is in book 1. Never been to Egypt, but I studied it. However, Down Under is in book 2. And I pulled a lot of my experience from Australia into book 2. You'll see, you'll be in Australia for a little bit in book 2, which is great. I love getting to harness a lot of my past experiences from places I've traveled to and places I've been to, and use those in my books, because then it just keeps me connected to the story. I become part of the story. I become part of the experience, and that just makes it richer. That just because I believe that when a reader reads those settings, they can tell that it's real. It feels real, and the reason why it feels real is because it comes from a place that is real. I'm tapping
So
rubber.
when you think of vampires, you don't usually think of Australia. You think of like London or LA.
Yeah.
What inspired Australia?
I think a lot of it inspired me due to loving Indiana Jones, even the Crocodile Hunter, and Crocodile Dundee. I like a little bit of comedy. You get to see a little bit of comedy in the Kane letters. There's a lot of that odd couple feel, because we got Mason from LA, who's like Damon Salvatore. He's very gritty. He's very dark. He's kind of a scoundrel. He's almost like Han Solo. But then you got, Nicholas Stahl from Russia, and he's kind of like Armand from Anne Rice's books. So 2 dichotomies. It's really fun seeing the two of them play off each other, because they're complete opposites, but they are vampires, and they have one goal. They have one source that they want to go to, and then they work together. But you see a little bit of that comedy, which is kind of funny. But damn it, I lost my thought. What was the question again?
Australia. You don't see a lot of vampire places.
Oh, yeah. That's where I made the connection. And then I tried to be a little inventive, because I can only imagine, the vampire lore exists everywhere. We see that. Oh, man. Got it. She just gave me chicken tortilla soup. I try to be inventive. I try to be inventive with the culture, like, the Aborigines. And I remember studying the Aborigines when I visited Australia, and every single culture has some sort of element or some sort of experience of what a vampire is, which is wild. that you can go everywhere. You can go to Russia, you can go to Australia, you can go to Africa. Everyone has their, rendition of what a vampire is. Pretty wild and pretty insane. It makes you wonder if there really are these things. And they probably are. They're probably demons. So I ran with that, wanted to really explore different cultures and just tried to imagine, what would it be like to see all these different vampires, all these different covens, that exist out there in this mythology, all the different, dark gifts that they have. And I played off of Anne Rice's, mythology too, because every vampire has a dark gift, and they're very unique. Some can read minds, some can move really, really fast, some can fly, can do all these crazy, wild things. And so I took Australia, and I tried to combine that, with this idea of what a vampire is, what a dark soul is, and just married the two. I went with Russia, for the Dark Council. They're the First Blood Council that exists in Russia, so most of them are Russian. I didn't want to go with the traditional too much, but still kind of like have that air, like of something that involved the traditional, but something about ice and snow and cold. It always spoke to me when it came to the lore, so it had to be something that was, like very much, Skyrim. Everything's snowy, everything's dark, everything's gloomy. It's a little bit like Transylvania, but not so much. And that's where, my idea of Russia came from. And then you've got the United States, and, the more modern day type of vampire. It's very, they're evil, they're gross, they're disgusting. Some of them are really cool looking, and maybe they're a little bit hot. Who knows? But it's not as ambient. It's not as romantic, it's more lustful, and it's dark. So, yeah. Yeah.
If your series would get picked up and make it to the big screen, who would you pick as your main characters? An actor to act.
Love it. I thought about this before on a couple of occasions, and did have some trouble with it here and there, but Alexander Glade I always pictured to be some sort of combination of Angelina Jolie and Kate Beckinsale, for obvious reasons, because of Celine, and Tomb Raider, Lara Croft. That was back in 2008, so things had kind of changed a little bit, and it's a little difficult because a part of me also thinks that I can't remember her name, but she was an MMA fighter, and she was not Ronda Rousey. Gina Carano. Gina Carano echoes the absolute character that Alexander Glade is. I mean, the muscle, the fire, the ability to just like tear someone to shreds while looking beautiful. Gina Carano, dye her hair red, put it in a braid. She's got two pistols and they're nickel plated. That's the feeling I get. And she has a cloak, with a collar and everything. And she is almost like Trinity from the Matrix series. She's not quite leather, but still kind of leather. And she will do somersaults around you until you're dead, unalived. There are others too. I thought of, I wouldn't mind Antonio Banderas being in the cast, as Saul, who's a vampire in book 2, and book 3. And then back in the day, I thought of Daniel Radcliffe, because, back in the day it was Harry Potter, and his look reminded me of Marcus Brennan, who is a youth pastor who finds the book by accident and then gets chased by a bunch of vampires and then runs into Alexander Glade. And he's kind of a little bit of a comic relief, but I always kind of pictured Daniel Radcliffe, as that character, who's just a measly little youth pastor. Like he was obsessed with vampires and horror and all that stuff. So it's kind of funny, it's kind of interesting. I don't know. I haven't thought about it much. I'm trying to think of others, but like, There are some. Ronda Rousey, would be another one. She would play my Irish vampire hunter because she's a badass too. She would just need to learn her accent, because she's Irish. She has to be Irish, you know. Yeah.
So what has been your most rewarding moment as a writer so far?
So far, that's a tough one because the past few months have been very, very rewarding. But if I had to choose one, it would be writing book 3. For sure, it was writing book 3 that made me feel like I was triumphant, like I did it on my own. I did this on my own. And I did my editor proud. I think it would be trite to say, it's like, selling a couple copies or, getting feedback from somebody who said, oh, your writing was great or whatever, and I love it. I feed on that so much. And that's partly why, like, I just can't just say that that's like the best thing ever, because it's not for me, it's for them. It's for the readers. It's the best thing for them, and that makes me feel good. That they loved it so much. But for me personally, it's writing book 3. That's what I think.
Answer. So you do pretty much everything yourself now because you're indie. How do you? Sorry, what?
Yep, I was agreeing with you.
How do you approach the revisions, editing,
Good question.
publicity, all of that?
Yeah, publicity. The editing, sometimes I get a little flexible with the editing because I will finish a chapter and sometimes I will go back and kind of scan, and tighten things up, think about like the pacing and the story itself. Some things get cut, some things will get expanded on a little bit more. It's very much a dance, very much a dance when it comes to the editing. But ultimately, when I'm done with the manuscript, I do a complete full edit, from start to finish. But I don't waste my time, and I don't spend too much time because it's almost like beating a dead horse. That's something that I learned is through college. I learned that you can edit and edit and edit and edit, and you can make it better, but it's never going to be good enough. It's never going to be perfect. So you don't want to completely waste yourself because and a professor told me, like, if it's good, it's good.
Yeah.
That's simple as that. I mean, it can be better, but if it's good, it's good. Don't waste your time. Don't spend so much time on it because you could actually regress and make it worse if you spend too much time editing. And that stuck with me. So I don't spend too much time editing. I look for things that are very, very key, that make a whole lot of sense in terms of the pacing of the story and the plot. I want to make sure that something is ringing true. If something's missing, I need to fill it. And that's content editing. It's not even copy editing. It's not proofreading. I'll do a quick run through for proofreading and copy editing, but because of my work as a caption editor, like, I'm almost always accurate. Like, I don't even know what spell checker is. I just use it as a formality, because I was always forced to be completely accurate in my work. So I never really make mistakes. But some things I will, make sure, like, do I want that to be a fragment or not? Maybe I should get a little bit closer to the rules because, as you know, like us writers, we know the rules, but we also know when to bend them. We can use. It's true. We can use a fragment. We can, use typographics, in very, very creative ways. Because it is an art. And the firm rules are rules, but we know those rules and we know when to bend them. And it's creative as a result. It becomes ours. It becomes our creation as a result. We're not tied down to something. But we gotta know where the line is. We gotta know where to draw it. And that's something that's always in my hat, as I'm editing. Never when I'm writing. If I'm writing, it's always coming from here, and the editing is up here. And I have to make sure it stays up here.
So, if you could pick a favorite vampire of all time, who would be your favorite vampire?
Gary Oldman, Bram Stoker's Dracula by Frank.
Ooh, love that.
That's a tough one. That's a real tough one because there are a lot of them that I absolutely enjoy. Like I loved Brad Pitt's Louis. I
Me
loved
too.
Antonio Banderas's Armand. Like that was just gorgeous. Like great stuff. Great stuff. And and the I can't remember the names. But those and I can't even picture like the modern day vampires right now, honestly, like as far as actors are concerned, but they're all good. I love all of them because all the bestiality of them, like they're evil and they're feral. you know Most of the time they just wear raggedy clothes and they just the hunger is voracious. They're not romantic. And I love those vampires too, but like the particular actors names, like it escapes me. But like if the image of like the classic vampire is more recognizable, and those are the ones that speak to me the most, is Gary Oldman, probably just because of the fact that he is the beginning, he is the start of it. And don't get me wrong, I love Bela Lugosi. I love the classic more than anything. But what Gary Oldman did with Francis Ford Coppola elevated it to a whole nother level. And I fell in love with Gary Oldman and his voice and the way he portrayed, the Prince of Darkness himself, like mesmerizing. Absolutely mesmerizing.
That's a good choice. If you could switch lives with any fictional character, who would you pick and why?
With any fictional character?
Yep.
Oh boy. Cayenne. Cayenne is Alexandra's kind of right hand.
Daddy, that's Daddy. He scratched my back.
Well, you got to come here. Cayenne was Alexandra's right hand, and I kind of drew from a lot of the Asian influence, like assassins, very much like a ninja, and very mysterious. And I like his history. I like his backstory. I pulled a lot of all those tropes that you love to see, from martial arts films. I fell in love with martial arts films when I was young, and I still love them. I still love martial arts films. I love Jackie Chan. I love Bruce Lee. I love Jet Li. All of them. And I would love to trade lives with one of them. To see be like one of those martial artists who can like do whatever. That definitely.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you could time travel to any era, what era would you go to, and why?
The time period of Edgar Allan Poe. If I could meet him, that would just be like beyond amazing.
Hot. Really hot.
What's the craziest thing you've ever done for love?
If only my wife were here, she can hear me say this. This is for real. When I initially published book 1 in 2009, I purchased a copy for myself to hollow out the pages of the book. A space like in the middle of the book, like there, and it was like right in the middle. I hollowed out the pages, and then I glued the pages.
Hello.
Yeah, hold on a second. And I put a ring in it. and I gave it to my back then she wasn't my wife, but she is now. She's been my wife,
Oh,
and I gave her the book and said, I found some errors in the book. Can you check to see what those errors are? And she opens the book, and it's all glued together, and in the middle is a ring. And she looked at me and went, and of course she said yes.
that's so sweet.
Yeah, that was the cane letters.
Hi.
It's my 4-year-old.
All right, Pierre, tell everybody where to find you, what you have coming up.
No, absolutely. Let's see. Sealed by Stone is coming out October 31st.
I like to be crazy, lazy.
Yes. October 31st. I'm going to be interviewed on October 31st as well. It's kind of like a book launch. And I'm going to be in Flint, Michigan signing books on October 18th. And then I'm going to be in D&K Books over in Roseville, Michigan on October 19th to sign books for their store because they want copies of my books signed. So I'm going to go there
exciting.
and sign the books directly there. It's going to be an actual event. They are like beyond excited. It's kind of cool. It's kind of fun. I'm also going to be in Smyrna, Tennessee next year in April, and I'm going to be on 3 panels. I'm going to be speaking on the fantasy panel, the poetry panel, no surprise there, and the horror panel, no surprise there. And I will have a table there, and I'll be selling books and signing books there too. Most likely, there are going to be at least 30 other authors there, and there's at least going to be 300 participants showing up there to buy books and schmooze. So I'm looking forward to that one. That one's going to be fun, and that's going to be in April of next year.
Where is that?
Where is it?
Where is that? Yeah.
Smyrna, Tennessee, in their convention center. And it's going to be ran by the Spine Bookshop. It's going to be run by the Spine Bookshop over in Smyrna, Tennessee. And this is its second outing as an author convention. Super exciting. I'm going to write book 4. And I'm going to hopefully finish it by next year for a Halloween launch. But we'll see.
My little
Maybe sooner. Maybe later. Who knows?
my chops.
Here, take the chapstick and go over here.
No, let me stay here.
Here's your chapstick.
No. I want to do
Hey, wait. And
It really is Leonie.
oh yeah. I know. Oh, she is. She's an utterably adorable PR piece. Well, I'm going to finish it hopefully by Halloween, if not sooner, maybe later. Hopefully not later. I want to finish it either by Halloween or sooner. And then I'm going to write my first dark romance called Kill the Envious Moon, which is an idea that I had in my head the moment I was writing Chimera Falls back in 2009. And it's been in my head since, and I haven't written it, but now I'm going to write it. It's going to be a dark romance, and it will feature William Shakespeare, and possibly a werewolf. No, not possibly.
Ooh.
I like this idea.
Yeah, and it's a dark
Yeah.
romance. And I love it. Like, it just came out of nowhere. I'm like, no, Kill the Envious Moon. Yeah, that sounds like a really good dark romance book. If you peruse my TikTok page, you'll see the cover, because I revealed the cover for it. It's kind of exciting.
Are you mainly on TikTok, or do you have other
I do have
social media platforms?
Yeah, I do
He
have
has a
Facebook
website.
page, and I do have my Medium page, and also I did set up basically a store on my website, which is my Medium page. And the moment you get on medium.com/Pierre-Roustan and you click on it, the first thing you'll see is the Bookshop of Shadows, which I will feature all sorts of merch. I will feature book bundles on there. There's currently the book bundle for all 3 books for a much lower price than if you were to say buy it from my brain's blanking. Zon. If you were to buy it from the Zon or the TikTok shop, it's a bit cheaper, but also because I sign those books, and I include all sorts of book talk goodies. So yeah, it's on my website. TikTok Shop has them. Trying to get more stock in. That's been a story. And but I'm gonna get about 60 copies coming in by the end of the month, and so my TT shop is gonna be like full, and those are all signed as well and swagged, because I get to,
Nice.
I get to chat with the reader. I mean, I get to know who the reader is. That's the cool
Mhm.
thing, about like the payment button, on my Medium page. I get to know who you are, which is really cool. I get to know who you are on TT Shop. I don't get to know who you are on the Zine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just see, a sale and that's it,
I think it makes it a little bit more special for sure.
Oh yeah.
Chops.
Go have chopsticks.
She is definitely the reason why I write, that's for sure.
Aw.
She's
Oh,
definitely
Leonie,
the reason I
we're
write.
so close. We're so close.
Holy
Got
crap.
it.
My
Thank
God.
you all so much.
100.
You guys have worked so hard.
So very hard.
Oh, oh,
Phalanges.
oh,
Tired.
Well, Pierre, it's been a lot of fun. We thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Did I answer all your questions?
Most of them, yes. You did really well.
Oh God. I have a tendency of just talking and talking and talking. I hope I didn't talk too much.
You did not.
Oh,
What?
you were great. Amazing.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh my Lord. But yeah, check me out on KU, Paperback, The Zon. I'm also on Barnes & Noble, for some wild reason. And the TT Shop, obviously. You'll find books 1, 2, and 3 on the TT Shop. But I'm going to be featuring all of these other books, on my Medium page too. Like eventually when Sealed by Stone comes out, you'll see, a pay button, right there on my Medium page as well. For a signed copy that's also swagged, because I can't do that on Amazon. Like you just buy it directly from Amazon and that's it.
Right.
But I want that relationship. I want that relationship with the reader. That's the one thing that I don't like about the Zon, but I appreciate it because they're the distributor, and so, and that's why I also like book signings. I am just looking forward to it. I'm going to be looking for book signings everywhere else as well. It could be Chicago, could be LA, it could be North Dakota. I don't care. Florida, wherever, because I like traveling. So you might see me. You might see me coming around somewhere.
You need to come down to Texas. Come on.
Texas. Yep, I'm going to be looking at Texas too.
Texas is the most baddest world.
Making things exciting and entertaining.
Thank you guys for tapping.
That was awesome. Happy Texas.
And thank you for the gifts. Thank you for everything.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
You
Really.
guys were amazing. Pierre, you were amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys so much.
Same.
Hopefully we'll see you on Halloween. Well, the 29th. We're going to do it that Wednesday. So
29th, you said?
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I think you will be able to.
Come join us and dress up.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I'm gonna
guys.
figure out, what I can do with costumes. Yeah, I would definitely like to see that happen. Maybe I can have my wife come in too, because she's on.
yes,
All
everybody.
to all the
Basically my
costumes.
book
Yes.
She's my book talker. She's the one that wraps the books, and she's the one that, she does like the shoot. I don't know what they are now. The wax. She does the wax thing.
Oh,
On the seal.
Yeah, she does a seal. She does a seal.
Nice.
And she will post. She reads all sorts of books, including mine. She's on TT as well. It's been a pleasure, and God bless.
yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Indiana,
Good
you're
night.
beautiful. Book talk, kid.
Thanks
You're
for you.
beautiful. Laya, you're always gorgeous.
Thank you.
You're so sweet. It's
Marketing
always a
guru for
pleasure.
sure.
I'm gonna eat my.
Bye, guys. Thank
you.
Bye bye.
Bye, Pierre. We'll see you later.
All right. Bye bye.
Oh my God.